There's your piece, there's your.
Good evening. IT, we're going to get that situated. Give us 1 second, everyone. All right. Good evening. I would like to call to order today's September 21st meeting of the Little Rock City Board of Directors. I'd like to take this time to welcome those that are in attendance as well as those that are online. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Director Richardson. Director Webb. Here. Director Peck. Here. Director Wright. Director Wyrick.
Present.
Director Campuris.
Present.
Director Phillips.
Here.
Director Adcock.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hines.
Present.
Mayor Scott.
Present. Vice Mayor Hines, would you please give the invocation?
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, we come to you today to humble ourselves before you as we seek guidance in leading our city. Please watch all of our first responders.
Amen. May we all please stand for a pledge of allegiance. We have a couple of items of presentation. I will first read our Hunger Action Month proclamation. And then immediately following that, we will have Mr. Gabe Holmstrom with the Downtown Little Rock Partnership to give an update, and immediately following that, go straight into our consent agenda. Whereas the economic and health crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating effect on Arkansas families and individuals in need, and despite dedicated efforts over the last decade by nonprofits, government agencies, businesses, and other organizations to reduce the number of Arkansans experiencing hunger, the ramifications of the pandemic have reversed this progress. And whereas the number of Arkansans experiencing food insecurity has soared over the last year, to meet this increased need, Arkansas anti-hunger advocates have worked with state and federal agencies to seek waivers that have allowed out-of-school programs and school districts flexibility in how they serve meals to children, and to the food banks and pantries for expanded flexibility in food distribution. And whereas to meet this increased need, Arkansas anti-hunger advocates have worked with state and federal agencies to seek waivers that have allowed out-of-school programs and school district flexibility in how they serve meals to children, and to food banks and pantries for expanded flexibility in food distribution. And whereas the expansion of the federal safety net, especially the USDA's decision to provide $1 billion per month in additional food assistance to SNAP recipients, has also had a significant impact on the lives of Arkansans in need. And whereas Arkansas' 6 Feeding American food banks distributed more than 95 million pounds of food through the Charitable Food Network in 2020, an increase of 30 million pounds over the previous year. And whereas as the COVID-19 pandemic came to Arkansas, the city of Little Rock responded immediately to the health and economic crisis caused by the pandemic by partnering with nonprofits, the Little Rock School District, restaurants, and other organizations to coordinate food relief efforts, including outreach to ensure eligible residents were aware of federal assistance programs such as SNAP, sponsoring citywide food distributions, and more. And whereas no child, senior citizen, or person of any age should be faced with a lack of food, and we know that food insecurity has detrimental impacts to developmental and cognitive growth, learning, health in child and senior populations, productivity, and other long-term social and economic consequences. And whereas September has been designated Hunger Action Month, now therefore I, Frank Scott Jr., Mayor of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Hunger Action Month in the City of Little Rock, and call upon residents to join with hunger relief providers and advocates in Little Rock and all over Arkansas. Thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. We'll add this to the files, and this will go to all of our hunger relief advocates. Now we'll ask Mr. Gabe Holstrom.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, board members. After taking a year off, like so many of us did with so many events, next weekend, October 2nd, we're going to be back with the 10th anniversary Main Street Food Truck Festival. As many of you know, this was an event that we started to bring people back to downtown and back to Main Street. And I think any of you who will see Main Street today, as opposed to where it was 10 years ago, will see that it has been a success and people are back and they're ready to come back again. So this year, we're going to bring 67 of your favorites and some new food trucks to downtown. And we still expect people that are to come back. All indications are that they will, but we're going to add a new twist. So one of the biggest challenges that we have with the event is the amount of trash that we produce. And we're going to work with an Arkansas-based company called Food Loops. Thanks to our friends at Coca-Cola Consolidated and Keep Arkansas Beautiful, they're the ones that are underwriting this effort, but we're going to make this a much more sustainable event. So the goal of this event, and all indications are that we're going to succeed with this, is to reduce the waste by about 85 to 90%. So all of the trash cans that you currently see on Main Street and the ones that we usually bring in, those are going to go away, and we're going to have waste stations as well as other bags set up, and those bags are going to be taken to a sorting area. So as bizarre as this sounds, and typically we'll generate about 3 large dumpsters full of trash. That's all going to be sorted and be sent to 3 areas: recycling, composting, and then landfill. So this group has a track record. They've worked with the March Madness with the NCAA, as well as some NASCAR races, and they've really have a great track record with this. So we're very excited to see this. We're providing all of the trucks with sustainable and recyclable materials. So the clam shells, the flatware, all that is going to be recyclable. So here's to a good weekend next weekend, and we hope to see you all out there. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Director Peck.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Gabe. I'm so excited, and on behalf of the Sustainability Commission, which I'm the liaison to, we're so excited that you've taken these steps to reduce waste and trash, and thank you for making that a focal point, and I hope that our food festivals in the future can follow along in the same vein. Thanks so much.
Ma'am, thank you.
Director Adcock.
Yes, Mayor, I would like to hold item 4 separate, please, off of the consent agenda.
Item 4 will be held separately.
Mayor, I don't know if this is the time. I know you say there's a few things, but I'd like to respond to Director Adcock at the appropriate time.
This is the appropriate time.
I guess I asked for a ruling from the parliamentarian. Since this item was placed, this was a resolution placed by a board member, that board member being me. And then it was on the consent agenda, based on the agenda last week. Does another board member have the right to remove something from the consent agenda? This is a question for the parliamentarian.
Well, she didn't, the chair did, and the chair does have the right.
Okay, the chair does, but the board members does not. Am I understanding you correctly?
No, that's correct. The practice with the board for at least the last 25 years has been that if a member asks to remove something from the consent agenda, even as the meeting begins, it has been done so as a courtesy and heard separately.
Okay,
Mr.
understood. Thank you, parliamentarian.
Mr. Parliamentarian, I was not aware of that. Thank you for that. Out of courtesy to City Director Phillips, I would assume that this will be an adverse action. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I mean, if it's off the consent agenda and taken up separately, we can do that. No problem with that. I just want to make sure we was following the rules and doing so.
Well, the chair will keep it on the consent agenda unless otherwise.
I object to that, Mayor.
There's an
I would
object-
like to have it held separate as well.
There's an objection to that from Vice Mayor. What is your objection?
I would ask that this also be held separate, Mayor.
Now that there are two, Mr. Phillips, there are two board members that have asked for this to be held separate. Out of courtesy to you, I wanted to keep it on. But now that we have two board members that have asked, we will both hold it separately.
Yeah, that's fine with me, Mayor. Thank you.
Item number 4 will be held separately. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda consists of a resolution authorizing the city manager to approve a contract increase with James A. Rogers Excavating Incorporated in amount not to exceed $400,000 for the final cover system of Cell 4 for the Little Rock Class 1 landfill and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Hasty Awards in an amount not to exceed $80,215.50 to provide the 2022 Little Rock Marathon Finishers Medals and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with U.S. Bank in an amount not to exceed $700,000 to provide prepaid Visa rewards cards in varying denominations of $50 and $100 for COVID-19 vaccination incentives and for other purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
Move for the adoption of the consent agenda.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 5 and 6.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Motorola in an amount not to exceed $1,598,390.60 for the purchase of Motorola APX 6000 series radios for the Little Rock Police Department and the Little Rock Fire Department and for the purposes. An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas with structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency, and for the purposes. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on second reading.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Motorola in amount not to exceed $1,598,390.60 for the purchase of Motorola APX 6000 series radios for the Little Rock Police Department and the Little Rock Fire Department. An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas with structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Motorola in amount not to exceed $1,598,390.60 for the purchase of Motorola APX 6000 series radios for the Little Rock Police Department and the Little Rock Fire Department. An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas with structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
We've now had 3 readings. Before we take a vote, Director Richardson.
Yes, Mayor, my hand was raised. I was trying to support Director Phillips' request to keep it item number 4 on the consent agenda. And that would have made it 2-2 steel case death match. I don't know if that affected into your decision or not, but I think last week Joan had asked for the awards for the structures that we're going to condemn and what wards were they in, and I don't recall getting that information. I think all of them, if I remember correctly, we're in Ward 1. I think periodically my late great mentor and Shiro we always talked about the disproportionate number of vacant structures in Ward 1 and Ward 2 and UV structures in Wards 1 and 2. And I don't remember, I think Joan had asked Bruce for some information on the location and the wards of those structures. And I think she said it from a historical perspective. So I'm kind of confused about how we're moving forward without having that information and why we didn't have that information, Mr. Moore.
Director Richardson, we showed the pictures last week, and with the pictures has the ward and information. Also in the ordinance, they're listed. The first one's on Martin Luther King Drive. Second one's on South State Street. Third one on Amberson Street, Ives Road, South Van Buren Street, and so those are the 5.
Well, Joan, you can correct me, but I thought Joan had asked from a historical perspective how many, not just the ones we saw those on the screen, and we saw the location when we had those presented, and I thought Joan had asked for some kind of historical perspective on the number of unsafe and vacant structures, as well as demolitions. And I thought I heard Joan ask for that more from a historical perspective, not just the one we're talking about tonight. And I didn't get that. I didn't see that in the information in our Pony Friday.
No, you're correct. I think the question was around the number of liens that we have filed, and that will be that takes a little while to compile, but I'll be sending that out Friday.
So the question was around liens, not those who had been condemned, or those that had been demolished, because it's a clear observation that a disproportionate number of those structures in wards 1 and 2, and I think that lends itself to some of the targeted financing efforts we tried to talk about during the resolution that we passed earlier this year. There's certainly parts of our city that's hurting more than other parts, and I would hope my good friend and Dr. Dean would agree with me that if there's one part of the body that's in more pain or has more severity of pain and or damage than the other part, we would pay attention to that part rather than treat all parts equally, which has lended itself to a lot of social ills that contribute to the number one issue, public safety, which we can't police our way out of. So I don't know how to capitalize this. I'm somewhat confused and amused about how we're proceeding right now. So I will be voting nay on this.
Director Wright?
Last week regarding this issue with the structures that were going to be demolished, I questioned one of the structures due to the facade, and it just appeared to me that it could have some historic significance. And I asked a question of staff, had they done a review? And I thought I was told that they had done a review. But at our memorial service for our colleague, Director Hendricks, one of her community residents approached me and said that they thought that it did have some historic significance. And they wanted me to raise the concern again that we look at that structure. I know the facade appears to be in good shape, but the structure itself is not sound. I understand that. But this individual, community resident of Ward 1, said that he thought that house did have some historic significance. And I hate tearing down historic structures. So I wanted to raise that point again. And I know our housing director I think he's here. Yeah, he was here. But I thought I was told that they had done a review.
Director Howard? Director Howard, if you will address Director Wright's comments.
Yes, sir. Director Wright, we did do a review of the structure at 3509 Martin Luther King Drive. We did meet with planning, and the information that they provided to us that the property is not a historical structure. Now, the information that I received from a citizen, it did state that the person that stayed there had some historical significance as far as information, as far as the person having some type of historic significance due to the things that they did as a profession. But actually, the structure itself is not a historical structure, and it's not in a historical area.
So it's not over 50 years old.
Yes, it's over 50 years old, but it's not on the historical register.
Well, that just could be an oversight. I thought we did some type of survey of all those structures. I know the facade looks like it would have been included or should have been included just by the nature of the facade, but so it is over 50 years old. So would that not qualify to be considered?
Well, I think when you go to that, you would have to get involved with the Arkansas the State Historic Preservation Officer would have to deem that structure to be historic.
And we didn't.
It's not in the historical area. It's not considered to be in the historical area, in the historical district. I know that the South End Neighborhood Association would like that area to be designated as a historical area. They would have to go through a survey, and I think that's one of the things that Brian Minion was working on with them before he retired. I don't think it has been completed, but the information that I received from the residents did have some information regarding the structure, but it hadn't been logged in with the State Historic Preservation Officer.
Mr. Moore, who has taken Mr. Minyard's role, and would they continue working with the South End to try to get it into the historic preservation?
Well, Brian just left, so I don't think Jamie's feel that yet. But it's an important role in the city, and I do believe we'll be moving forward filling that. But he literally just left a few weeks ago.
Well, let me ask my colleagues. Would you all be opposed to us making some type of, allowing a determination to be made on this structure since it is over 50 years old? And I know the South End has been working on this project for a while to try to get that area included. I just hate to see us tear down structures that could have some historical significance in a mad dash to just get rid of everything. I mean, it's not my ward, but this is a resident did come to me and say that they thought it did have historic significance.
Director Wright, I don't know if you want us all to say a yay or nay to that. I want to thank Kevin and his team for doing what they're doing, and I think that.
May I finish what I was saying, Mayor?
Yeah, I thought you asked for board input.
No, I said I was asking the chair.
Director Richardson, Director Wright was talking, and then we'll come back to you, Director Richardson.
I'm directing myself to the chair, and if I did not, I apologize.
No,
But
carry on.
this was a resident of Ward 1, and you all know him, Arnard Crump. And he is a resident of that area, and he would know about the area and historic homes and things in that area. I would not. All I could go by is what I saw on the facade. And the facade looked like it had some age to it, and it would qualify. Now I'm hearing that one of the person that lived there did something of a historic nature in our city. I'd just like to know, is there any objection, Mayor, to us possibly allowing the housing or planning staff to look into this and determine if there's anything we need to salvage here?
Director Wright, this is gone. It's my understanding, and please chime in, Director Howard, that this has gone through all the compliance approvals and planning and things of that nature. Is that correct, Director Howard?
That's correct.
So it has gone through that. Director Howard, generally when you go through a planning process, it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that you do check whether or not it does have a historical significance before moving down this path. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So
I told him I would try.
and I do, well, it comes, so what's happened now, we've had 3 readings. So you've made your comments, so if the board members decided to vote it down or, but there's been 3 readings, so now we have a vote. So there's not an opportunity, Mr. Parliamentarian, for an amendment at this time. Is that correct?
Amendment could be made before the vote's taken, but it would have to be seconded and then voted on separately.
So if you would like to pursue an amendment for this to go back to some type of process, this would be the opportunity.
Well, I would like to see someone who is work with the South End neighborhood. I know they were working on this project. If the board doesn't want to do it, that's fine. I told Arnard that I would raise the point again because he did feel that this house had some kind of historical significance. I have no idea.
We can make sure that, Director Howard, if you can make sure that someone reaches out to Mr. Arnard as well as Ms. Jeffries, and I think Mr. Ricky Jackson is the president of the South End Neighborhood Association at this point in time, but definitely, if you can't get in touch with Mr. Ricky Jackson, please get in touch with Ms. Ruby Jeffries or Dr. Benny Hatchett. I'm sure they can fill you in, as well as Mr. Arnard Crump.
And I know it takes some time before they let the contract, so there should be time to do that and then time for them to come back to us if they discover anything. So we don't have to pull it off, but I did tell him I would bring this back up.
Will you take the lead on that, Director Howard?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Listen.
And I agree with you totally with the information that she provided this week to us. We'll have a few weeks before we get it out.
Okay.
So if the city manager is fine with it, I'm fine.
And that's fine, but I think it's important to note that the owner is the one that's responsible for making application and going through the process. That person, obviously, they're duly notified as all these other individuals were. So, we can talk to Ms. Jeffries and Arnott and everybody, but at the end of the day, it's the owner's responsibility to move something forward if he so chooses, and obviously he's not here tonight.
Well, that person could be elderly or they could be deceased. I don't know. I just know that the gentleman came to me and I said that I would bring this up. That's all I'm doing.
Yes, ma'am. So Director Howard moved forward with just working with some of the comments that were shared by Director Wright. We've had 3 readings. Are there any more questions from the Director Richardson had a question or comment?
Yeah, Mayor, just one more comment, and it has less to do with that one particular structure and more to do with the process. And if they've gone through it and we've offered them the support to go through the process and they receive a determination, I'm of the mindset we don't improve in communities by tearing structures down. I've never been in that mindset, and I've said that repeatedly since I've been on this board. But the other thing that just popped into my mind real quickly that makes this really, really frustrating to me is a lot of time it's a messenger rather than the message that carries the weight. And it's not what's being said, that who's saying it. I could almost, and I hope I'm wrong, I could almost guarantee if I discovered a cure for AIDS right now, I'd have one nay vote against it. And the frustrating part is I don't have to call that person's name out for those who serve with me and those who follow city board members meetings. And if I had a cure for AIDS, discovered a cure for AIDS, I can be guaranteed one nay vote tonight. So I think that what Director Wright was talking about illustrates a lot of times the frustration that certain people in our community feel about their message not being given the same weight as a message of other people from other parts of our city. And if my comments less to do with that particular structure, support Director Howard and his team and his staff and what they're doing. And I support Director Wright and her following up with Arnard's request. And I think Ms. Moore made it clear that if the person didn't apply themselves, then we're pretty much handcuffed in terms of what we can do. But I just wanted to emphasize that the most often And that's been a part of the most frustrating thing about being on this board. It's the messenger rather than the message that carries the weight. And that has some serious negative consequences in certain parts of the city of Little Rock, unfortunately.
Thank you so much, Director Richardson. We now had 3 readings. Are there more questions? Seeing no more questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it.
Mayor, register me a no on that item of, about the structures.
Director,
Emergency clause.
there's also, City Clerk, Director Wright is registered as a no on that particular vote. We also have an emergency clause for these votes. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it.
That was item 6.
Yes. Madam Clerk, would you please read item number 7, please?
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a plan and establish a revised plan office district titled Integrated Site Solutions Revised POD located at 218 North McKinley Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes, first reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on second reading.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
Who did I get a second from?
I believe I heard Director Wright.
Okay. An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a revised plan office district titled Integrated Site Solutions Revised POD located at 218 North McKinley Street, second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
That's third reading. An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a revised planned office district titled Integrated Site Solutions Revised POD located at 218 North McKinley Street, third and final reading.
We've now had 3 readings. Director Webb, and then after Director Webb, Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. I wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to look at the email I sent, or that I apologize that Ashley sent to everybody today from the homeowner who lives directly behind this establishment, and he included a picture in it. But if you actually drive by there, the picture doesn't really do it justice, because it's kind of like this big hulking entity that feels like it's in his backyard. So it's very intrusive. And I know he was unable to be here tonight, and that's why he sent the email to me, which I forwarded to Ashley, and she sent you all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. Director Richardson.
I'm sorry, Matt. I didn't take my hand back down.
All right. Thank you so much. We've had 3 readings. We've heard comments. Any more questions? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Nays have it.
Roll call.
There's been a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Director Richardson,
Aye.
Director Webb,
No.
Director Peck,
Director Peck, we can't hear you.
No.
Director Wright,
No.
Director Wyrick. No. Director Compuris. No. Director Phillips,
No.
Director Adcock,
No.
Vice Mayor Hines.
No.
1-8.
Nays have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 8 for the first time.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a planned district residential titled the Octonary PDR located at the southeast corner of East 16th Street and Barber Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official signing map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes, first reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development, establish a planned district residential titled the Octonary PDR located at the southeast corner of East 16th Street and Barber Street, Little Rock, Arkansas. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development, establish a planned district residential titled the Octonary PDR located at the southeast corner of East 16th Street and Barber Street. Third and final reading.
We've now had three readings before we call the vote. Mr. Robert Hanson.
Yes.
You signed up to speak against Mr. Hanson.
So, I'm Robert Hanson. Thank you for having me here to speak today. I don't actually, I grew up in that area over there, but don't actually live there anymore. I'm 1/4 owner of the house my brother lives in.
Mr. Hanson, if you don't mind speaking closer to the mic or pull your mask down just a little bit.
Yes, I grew up in that neighborhood over there, and I don't live there anymore, but I'm 1/4 owner of the house that my brother lives in, which is right next door, just yards away from this project. And I can't help but think that the house is going to go down in value and all the houses around the neighborhood there, because this project does not fit with that neighborhood over there. If you look at I don't know if y'all have seen it or not, the blueprint that was made where these houses are going to be built. It's a neat little document there, and it fills up the whole two lots there. And it looks like a big rental unit or something. But I've given a lot of thought to this, and this argument right here is the only one that just keeps coming back to me. If you look at that blueprint and look at it in the context of being in a neighborhood where families live, it just doesn't fit. It just won't work. And then when you kind of back up and look at it in total with the houses that are around it, it's ridiculous. And that's really all I can ask you to do is just look, if you haven't seen what I'm talking about there, the blueprint, then just think about it in your mind, and then kind of look back over the whole neighborhood. There's houses going down through there that are family houses. They got front yards, backyards, fenced-in backyards to raise a family. And this, of course, we'd rather the lot stay vacant, but we're not, going to tell somebody they can't build a house there. Why not build two houses there with front yards and backyards, fenced-in backyards, and let people come in there and buy them and raise a family? Why does it have to be 8 units there? It's just ugly. And that's about all I got to say. I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Mr. William Hanson Jr.
Mayor, can y'all hear me? Mr. Mayor and members of the board, thank you all for letting me speak this evening with you all. As Bob said, we're at 1609 Barber, which is right next door to this proposed operation. We have been there. It's been our homestead since 1959. And our family has been on the east side of Little Rock since the early 1900s. We didn't bail out of here early on like a lot of people did when the Western movement happened. We stayed, and we're proud of our neighborhood. It was bad for a long time. People said, "You live in East Little Rock? Oh my God." And I hate to say it that way, but they did. And I said, "Yes, we do." So anyway, we've come a long, long way, and we're proud of that, ladies and gentlemen. But this deal is far too excessive for the property that's going on. It's 0.32 of an acre. That's a half a block, a short city block. And you're going to put 8 different units in there and at a 10-car parking lot. And I'm going to ask each one of you to put yourself in our position. I live there. I'm the resident owner, and I have two other owners besides Bob, and that's my sisters who live out of town. But think of it this way. Suppose you have this stuff come in next to you there, and you got all this parking and all this mess going on at these houses, and right next to your sleeping quarters. Okay, are you going to like that? I mean, you know, it's just not feasible. We're not against progress at all, ladies and gentlemen, but this is too excessive progress. I mean, a couple of houses, 3 or 4 maybe spread out. We could probably live with that, but not the way this is set up. And the planning commission, I know nobody probably even took a look at this because they 10 and oldest, and nobody named it. And I think it's intolerable. I mean, that's what I thought. I mean, I got to be honest. So I would appreciate y'all thinking of it this way. Let's have some progress, but not that great a number of residences. And I appreciate y'all. I'm sorry I got all wound up, but I took over my 3 minutes, but I apologize to you. Thank you for listening to me.
And Mr. Hanson, the 3-minute rule is only during citizens' communication. Just want, so you knew the rule. But I'm not asking you to come back up, though. You can if you want to. I'm just joking with you. I just want you to know the rules. Just a little levity here. All right. Director Adcock.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Collins, please.
Director Collins, I don't see you. Oh, there you are.
Mr. Collins, these two gentlemen have grown up on this property, and there was a service station at one time that they was employed at. There was 3 gas pumps or containers underneath that ground. Did you check to see if they have been removed?
I have not been able to get with ADEQ and find that information. That was something that was asked of me earlier. We will endeavor to find out, has that been removed? There is a time frame back in the 80s that there was a lot of gas tanks that was removed in a big program that ADQ done. That may be part of this. I do not know. But we will research that. If this does get passed at the board before any building permit is issued, that will be remediated and found out.
Okay, so we are putting on the site of a service station several years ago, 8 single-family houses and the car parking for 10 vehicles. Is that correct?
That's correct. The vehicles would be located adjacent to the alleyway.
But where we had a service station back in the 40s and 50s, we're putting 8 single-family houses.
That's correct. I mean, the plan development shows that we're splitting that into 8 lots.
Okay, thank you.
All right, now we had Director Adcock, Director Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. Is the applicant here? Did he fill out a card?
I do not believe so, just the Hanson brothers, or Mr. Hanson Jr. and Mr. Hanson. Would you like? Yes. Well, 1 sec. Are you the applicant? I don't think.
No, he's not the applicant.
Yeah, you had your opportunity, but Director Collins.
Just to inform Director Wyrick, Mayor said that he didn't fill out a form, but when I was in the back room, the applicant was present in that room.
Is the applicant still here?
I believe so. I can go check and see. Give me a second.
Yes. If the applicant is still here, we'll hear from the applicant. Director Wright, is your question pertaining to?
I would like to see another rendering image. They can pull that up.
All right, we have the applicant here. Director Collins.
Do you have that?
Can you work with IT to bring up the rendering for us to look at?
The reason why I asked for him to come is he's done a lot of work in East Little Rock, building houses and renovating property. And I wanted him to describe to all of us what his plans are for this development. And you had some big cards and displays at the Planning Commission. Do you have those with you today?
Yeah, no, I apologize. I didn't bring
I know you
the,
had your daughter with you when you were here.
I was able to get some help from Grandpa tonight.
Yeah, okay. So you don't have any renderings to
I
talk to us
apologize, I
about?
don't.
Well, and can you describe what your plans are, how this is going to work and how the houses are going to look? It's my understanding that they will be owner occupied. You're going to sell these houses to individuals.
Mhm.
And it's sort of like a little village. So can you describe to us what your plans are for that location?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I apologize. I'm incredibly nervous, so try and work through this.
Take your time.
So the idea, we're actually neighbors. I live on East 16th Street. There's an interstate separating us otherwise. So far, we've been able to do a fair amount of middle income housing, and we've been able to do some smaller projects that have been fun. But in order to help maintain the economic demographics that make up both our neighborhood and that of Hanger Hill, the idea and the hope here is to create smaller homes that would be more affordable to a broader group of. But this isn't a new idea or concept. It's there are 1,800 square foot lots already platted in the original city of Little Rock. We built a home on one about 6 years ago. Additionally, they're doing this in other cities. There was something in the news this morning where 4 smaller homes were just built in Bentonville. So it's not a new idea, but it may be new to Little Rock, but this is something that's happening across the country, and that we're just kind of building smaller homes that are more appropriate for first-time home buyers. Not everybody can wants or can afford your typical 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage style home. So we're just trying to offer something that is more affordable and attainable to the market. But the idea with these 2 lots is that this is on a corner, it's a corner lot. That these inner 6 houses would actually have front porches on them that would face each other. So that's just the buildable area. I'm not going to build square boxes. They'll have front porches on them, and you'll be able to kind of walk through that space and have this shared courtyard feel to it in order to better cultivate community, offering the front porches, trying to pull people outside. But however, the 2 that face Barber Street, those front porches will face Barber Street in order to maintain the current feel of and balance of Barber Street. Additionally, we'll put some smaller front porches on the 16th Street side, not to disrupt the balance of that particular street. When these things have happened across the country, they did not bring the value down to the area. They brought the value up. So, and this isn't something that I have a problem living next to. I literally live next to 2 smaller structures. I'm a block away from 3 other smaller structures that I've built. So if I did have the opportunity to build these beside my house, I would do it. Just want to, I understand that not everybody wants to live next to these, but there are people who exist who do want to live next to these, and I'm one of them.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What is the square footage for each one of these? I understand some of them are going to be 2-story and some of them single-story. Can you tell us what the square footage are for the homes that you're proposing?
These are just ballpark figures, but the 2 that would face Barber Street would be in between 500 and 600 square feet. And those would be single-story houses. So you would just have these, something, it's not quite a tiny home. Would probably refer to it as something closer to a small home. The 6 homes that are behind the 2 facing Barber Street would be 2-story houses and would probably be closer to 1,000 square feet heated and aired, that, not to include the porches. Additionally, the 2 in the back could potentially be built in a way that they would be a carriage house style. So there might be a single car garage on the lower level, and then a living space above it, as well as, porches that face a common area. And I apologize, we could have spent a lot more money in giving a better vision of but because this was a new idea, we just didn't want to go all in and spending a lot of money on renderings that would have really done this done a better job at giving a vision to what we're trying to do.
All my questions. Thank you.
Director Wright, then after Director Wright, Director Richardson.
Yes. Now, I'm looking at your schematic here, and it says 630 square feet per floor for the two-story.
It could be up to that amount, so that's the buildable area.
Okay, and then the 840 for the one-story.
Sure. But if you consider there's a 6-foot front porch on the front, and then, so the heated and aired square footage for the two facing barber would, it just cuts into that quite a bit. So that's the buildable area, but, and again, I'm giving you ballpark figures, but it would be something closer to 500, 600 square foot for the two facing barber, and then maybe 1,000, 1,200 square feet for the 6 that are facing the corner.
Okay, all right, but it's not per floor. It's per unit. The two
So
floors.
lots 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7, it would be per floor. It could be up to that amount per floor if I built to the buildable area, but that, once you add in a 6-foot, 8-foot porches, it would reduce that heated and aired square
So
footage.
you could be looking at 1,000 square feet for the two-story and
Yes, ma'am.
up to the 800 for the one-story.
Yes, ma'am, it could be up to. If you built to the buildable areas and did no porch, but
Okay.
that's not my vision.
I was just trying to get a visual. My first home was less than 1,000 square feet. So I know what you can do with a small space, and it was 3-bedroom, 1 bath. And, I thought it was quite nice myself. I could afford it. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Richardson.
Not a question for the gentleman. Thank him for the work he's doing. I know my Shiro is frowning down at me for adopting this "I, my, me" concept tonight, but there have been several times I made suggestions that we pursue brownfield assessment and cleanup grants as employment opportunities to help clean up some of these older gas stations and use it as part of our reentry programs. And I've yet to have anybody be supportive of that. And it goes back to the messenger analogy I made a minute ago. And I just like to say to the second gentleman, I can understand when he said he's embarrassed to say he lives in East End. When I first played EOA baseball and basketball, it was in East End. When I ran gang intervention prevention programs over in Hollingsworth, it was East End. But now somehow it's magistically, majestically going to be called East Village. So I want to tell him that hopefully that can soothe him, that it won't be identified as East End anymore. It'll be East Village. And with the naming and the branding, probably going to come some other opportunities that none of us saw in the past. But I think that it speaks to Jones' question about the cleanup of the gas station. We've had several opportunities, redevelopment opportunities at several codes of gas station that I've made suggesting that we pursue brownfield assessment and cleanup grant funding at no cost to us. We get this from the state at no cost to the owner of the property to have people, hire people to assess, and if there is any damage, to clean those properties up. And I'm somewhat surprised to hear that being a concern tonight. So that's all I had to say on that, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Richardson. I believe we've had everyone made a comment. Seen any more additional comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would please read resolution number 4.
A resolution to direct that in September 2021, a Small Business Advisory Council will be formed to advise the Little Rock City Board of Directors on policies affecting small businesses in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes.
City Director Antoine Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to address my colleagues before we discuss this vote. I brought this resolution last week because there are a number of small businesses that have reached out to me last year and this year, concerned about the growth of their business with ideas that could help their businesses operate better, grow and function better. So this was a request of the citizens of Little Rock to have a small business advisory council, which would meet and then present their thoughts to us as a board, as a policymaking board, on what those things are that affect their operations or their businesses throughout the city. This is a resolution, and the members of this Small Business Advisory Council would be selected by us for them to meet for a short period of time. I think the resolution calls for them to produce a report by June of 2022. And then if this is something that works out great, maybe it's something that becomes a standing committee like our other committees. But if not, we will have served the purpose of our small businesses by listening to them and being responsive. And when I use the term small business, it's defined in a resolution for the members who are watching and here in person. Under the SBA, small business is anything under 500 people. However, we all know that true small businesses are 1, 2 people, 5, 6 people, 9, 10 people. And sometimes those businesses seem like they get lost in the shuffle of what small businesses are. So this gives us an opportunity to really hear from them, understand how their businesses are being operated, and what we can do to either encourage the growth, encourage more new businesses in our city. So with that, I hope that my colleagues understand the purpose and the intent of this resolution and this council. I also would state that prior to issuing this resolution, I spoke with city staff. The Small Business Development Office is supportive of this council. I took heed to my colleagues' comment last week about including someone from the planning department to be a part of this process, because we know a lot of small businesses have to deal with planning issues on the front end as well. So those issues have been addressed. The staff has shown support of this resolution, and I think it'd be good for our city. I think it makes our city better by being responsive to our small businesses. So with that, I ask my colleagues for a favorable vote here tonight to pass this council through a resolution. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Phillips. Director Adcock.
Maybe I'd like to table this until the first meeting in October.
There is a motion from Director Adcock. Is there a second? There's a second from Director Compuris. All those in favor? Please.
Aye.
I haven't finished yet, Director Adcock.
See?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Roll call.
I haven't said whether ayes or nays have it yet.
Well, those roll calls don't come anyway, so.
Ayes have it. There's a roll call.
Yes, Mayor. Roll call.
Roll call.
Director Richardson,
Aye.
Director Webb,
Aye.
Director Peck,
Aye.
Director Wright,
Aye.
Director Wyrick,
Aye.
Director Compuris, Director Phillips,
No.
Director Adcock,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hines.
Aye.
Mayor, I meant no, I'm sorry.
Madam Clerk, would you reflect the roll call?
7-2. 7 ayes, 2 nays.
Mayor, if I may.
Director Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want the record to reflect, 'cause I think there was some confusion, as stated by Director Richardson, that vote was to table the motion. And that motion was made by Director Adcock. So I asked Director Adcock, can you state why you decided to table this motion for 2 weeks?
Unfortunately, that's out of order. You've had the vote. You're supposed to move on.
Excuse me?
It's not in order. You've had the vote and the item is no longer before the board or to be here on October the 5th. I mean, I like the question, but it's in terms of the.
Well, I'm not asking her to change her vote, Mr. Carpenter. I'm just asking her to talk to my
Once the vote-
colleague.
Sorry.
I'm just asking to talk to my colleague about why her position was to make that motion.
Right, but once a vote is taken, the matter is not supposed to be discussed further.
Well, I'm not asking her to change her vote. We discuss matters after the vote's taken out.
Well, and when the point of order is called, I will tell you that once the matter is.
No,
You're not
Mr. City Attorney, there was no point of order. No one made a point of order. You just inserted yourself into the conversation between me and Director Hancock.
I was trying to follow Robert's Rules of Order, which is what the board has adopted to follow.
Well, I'll defer to the chair on the ruling, but I was just asking my colleague why she made a motion to table.
There's a point of
resolution.
personal privilege. Director Phillips, would you like to make a question or a comment?
It's a comment, and I hope to get a response. I would like to know from any of my colleagues who voted to table this, what was the reason for the tabling? So we can address the issue to make sure we have a favorable vote next time. So that's open to all my colleagues.
Director Phillips is.
I got no one wants to talk to me again, Mayor. That's all. Thank you.
Director Adcock, is your hand up?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to request that you invite Mr. Derek Rainey to our next meeting to talk to us about his vision. And he is a small business development coordinator. I think he's only been in this position for a year, and I would like for him to address us with what he plans to do, his vision, and how we can assist him. Thank you.
Mayor, I got my hand raised if I would, Mayor.
Director Phillips, you may go before I respond.
All right, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, I talked to Mr. Rainey. He was supportive of this. And in addition, this was a resolution for advisory council, not for him or whoever to assist and answer questions from the small businesses that will be represented through the advisory council. They were going to report to us as a city board because we make policy for the city, not the Small Business Development Office. So I'm not sure why Mr. Rainey's presentation would have any impact on what we decide as a board, as a policymaking board. He was there to be a liaison, assistance to the council when they have issues that relate to small businesses in the city of Little Rock. So I want to put that in the public record, if you will. I think that issue has been addressed already.
Thank you, Director Phillips. And Director Adcock, I will take your request under consideration and follow up with you whether Mr. Rainey will be here or not. Director Richardson.
I just want to reemphasize what Director Phillips said to Joan is that this is a resolution, and I'd hate for us to be dependent upon specific individuals, regardless of their level of expertise, to base our policy on what they bring to us. I think it's a resolution. That's all it is. It's a resolution, and it's not a panacea. It's something that's going to be and could be and will be a work in progress. I think that Director Phillips, I really appreciate what you're trying to do, because as you struggle with how do we define small businesses, that smaller number that you mentioned, just happen to be located in areas, those are the businesses in areas where we're suffering the most social ills that are producing the crime in our community. So I think this is one of the ways we can proactively look at addressing unemployment, underemployment, supportive services from these businesses to those communities that have developed partnerships. And I just think it's, I'm not sure I understand why we're delaying this until October. I mean, I'm flummoxed is the word I use, Vice Mayor.
I agree with you, Director Richardson. I'm disappointed that we couldn't get this passed this time. I also add to what you said, Director Richardson. I mean, obviously, we're still dealing with a pandemic, and we know that this virus has hurt those small businesses the most. So giving them an opportunity to communicate with us directly on how we can help improve what they do for our citizens and operating small businesses seem to be, this seemed to be an easy one. I don't know why this is complicated. I thought this was easy.
Yes,
Last
sir.
week it was easy. We all seemed to be in agreement last week. I don't know what's happened since last Monday and today. But I agree with you, Director Richardson. I'm disappointed with what happened this evening.
Well, I thank you for that too, sir. They're kind words, and I think it goes back to the messenger rather than the message. It just reinforces, unfortunately, what I feel about how we conduct our business and how we move policy and move issues forward in our city to advance our city. So I thank you for your work on that. And I agree with you. It's an easy one. It's a resolution. It's not an ordinance. It's a resolution.
All right, thank you, Director Richardson. Director Wright, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would also like to hear from Derek Rainey. I recall in the past, our small business, development center, I remember when it started out. Matter of fact, my husband and I were recruited to be a part of it. Dude, it's been a while back. I'm not sure what it does now. So I would like to hear from Derek Rainey as to what our small business center does now. And that's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Director Wright, what most likely will happen at a point certain, we will do a policy discussion. And I'll keep you updated on that in response to your particular question. I do think that's a little bit separate than Director Adcock's request. And as I share with Director Adcock, I'll follow up on whether or not Director Rainey, Mr. Rainey will come before the board. But I do think I do appreciate your comment on that. And that more than likely will be a policy discussion.
Because it used to be a business incubator.
Yes.
And I recall back when I first got to Little Rock, the Hinton Center was being developed and there were federal monies involved. And one of the things that was supposed to be there was an incubator for small business. I
Correct.
don't know what it has evolved into now. I have
Sure.
no clue what our small business development center does, or even if it's called that. And I think it's appropriate to have a discussion and have a presentation or something.
I don't.
So however you want to handle it, that's my concern.
And we'll take that feedback.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I do want to share with members of the board the reason why. Sorry, Director Wire, you had a question? I'll yield to you.
Yeah, this is to follow up behind Director Wright's comments. I too would like to hear from Mr. Rainey. I'd forgotten that we had this small business administrator. I'm the one that asked Director Phillips to add someone from the planning department because there have been some times when some real estate people have sold property to an individual and then they have a plan for something and that property does not fit into the zoning. So I think it's real important with small business whenever they start looking for a place to rent or property to buy, that they understand what they can do and what they can't do there. So if we have an interview or if we have a meeting with Mr. Rainey, there may be some other pieces of this commission that need to come together. There might be other pieces of city government that need to be a part of this. And I applaud Director Phillips for doing this. I just want to make sure that when we do this, we have all the pieces together and we're moving in the right direction. So that would be my reason to defer as was requested. It has nothing to do with Director Phillips or his idea to improve small business. I'm all about that. In Southwest, we'd like to have more small business, but no, it's just to make sure that we have all the pieces together as we push this commission forward. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Director Richardson, you had your hand up?
Yes, sir. This is my last time tonight, Mayor. I think the issue that's confusing to me is the mission and the work is laid out in the resolution. And I think that's the key point of what we should be discussing rather than make up of the committee. That could be an ongoing process. I think that the resolution speaks for what Director Phillips wants to have us accomplished as a city. And to me, that is what's confusing to me. The makeup of it's irrespective of the makeup. The work and their mission is laid out in the resolution. What we want them to do. Now we can always have time to change or add or deal with the makeup of the committee, but the resolution in of itself speaks to what Director Phillips wants us to accomplish through that particular resolution. So that's why I'm confused, and that's my last point tonight, Mayor.
All right, thank you so much. I just want to reiterate to members of the board, when we have our agenda meetings is to ask these type of questions, to get feedback and preparation, that we can move forward with progress, and not has as many tabling discussions. That's the reason why we have our agenda meeting. So I just really stress with the members of the board to please, when there are questions like Director Wyrick had, she had some questions about planning, and that was amended to be a part of Director Phillips' resolution. That's the process of having it. But we want to move towards with progress, particularly as it relates to our small business community. I want to commend City Director Phillips for not only listening to the community of small business community members, but being responsible with them with this small business council as a resolution to go through a fact-finding phase of a few months to decide whether or not this council should be transitioned to a board or commission. So I want to commend you, Director Phillips, on that. With that being said, the board will now go into executive session for the purpose of making appointments and reappointments to various city boards and commissions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second to go into executive session for the purpose of boards and commissions. When we come back from boards and commissions, we'll then proceed with making any comments on what went on in executive session, and then go to citizens communications, and then to adjournment. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. We'll now ask everyone to excuse themselves while we go into executive session, and then we will call people back who are part of citizens communication.
So,
I'm alive.
Good. Yeah, we have one this afternoon.
I'm